We are so back. Mascot horror is back, baby! With the recent release and explosion in popularity of Indigo Park, the slight but noticeable improvement with the most recent Banban installment, and two announcements of major horror franchises, Bendy and the Ink Machine and Poppy Playtime respectively, getting a movie announcement, this year seems to be the return of Mascot horror. Skip to this timestamp if you want to get into the meat and potatoes of this review, but for the rest of you, strap on in. Now we know that Mascot horror has fallen off in popularity ever since the obvious oversaturation of the genre. There were lackluster games coming out, the story from our biggest franchise, Five Nights at Freddy's, was no longer feeling satisfying to fans after the Fnaf 3 conclusion, and it only got worse as the supernatural aspects of the story seemed to get more and more out there, for lack of a better term. Aggressive expansion, as I would call it. But there was a light at the end of the tunnel that was 2023. All this to say, Mascot horror isn't what it used to be. And listen, I don't want anyone to think that I dislike what the community has done with and for the genre. I think this community houses some of the most talented game designers, artists, story writers, and much more. But that's not to say that just as many, if not more people, have tried to get in on the scene with their own take on the genre, leading to their, let's just say, less than stellar success. With just about bare minimum effort, no less. As beloved as it is now, I think Garden of Banban only got as popular as it is because of the genre it was designed for. The first game, putting it bluntly, was nothing special. It had little to offer, and although it was free, it wasn't scary, it was poorly executed, it did have the drone, which was creative even if its uses weren't, and was not well received by those who were just judging it objectively. The second game is said to be the worst in the series, and the others leading up to 7 are not much better. But look at it now, a soon-to-be juggernaut, assuming they don't mess up their current position in the community, among the genre. Still not trying nearly as hard as something like Poppy Playtime, Bendy and the Ink Machine, and our subject today? Indigo Park. Yet people love it. They can't get enough of Banban, and although I wish they would pay some more experienced people to maybe help with the story, maybe remaster the old games, do some redesigns, etc., something, it looks like Banban is here to stay exactly the way it is. Now, it may seem like I'm just hating on Banban, I don't exactly have a good history with the games, but bear with me, I have a point. Indigo Park is the newest kid on the block that has captured everybody's attention. This game is a breath of fresh air for the genre, and I think it's going to go all the way. Now then, this isn't to say that Mascot horror is back.
You already did.
Well, what I am trying to say is that the future looks bright for Mascot horror. Maybe things like Banban encourage the community to try harder, to push past the doubt that nobody would like what they had to offer if it wasn't perfect. I think maybe people saw this and said to themselves, I can do that just as good, if not better. And then they tried their hand at their own horror game, and the future's looking good. Maybe I might never enjoy Banban, and that's fine, it's my opinion. But now is not the time to put down people in the community that helped build it up. So without further ado, welcome to my review on Indigo Park. Enjoy. First of all, let's start off with this cute little spoiler warning. Getting out of my way. Go on, little buddy. Get out of here. This game is currently free on Steam and only about an hour long, so if you want to experience it yourself, then now's the time. Go get it. It's only like a few gigabytes. It's really fun, it's cool, it's awesome, and then come on back here. So let's start this off with the story. I did actually do a tiny bit of research. I frame by framed the cutscene so I can make sure I get every little tidbit on the newspaper and the text messages. So let's start off with that. So the game starts off with our unnamed protagonist at their home, and we can see through a newspaper that the park was supposedly closed down for an unknown reason, and apparently it was also looked into by police. Our character wants to break into the park to quote-unquote investigate. After arriving, we explore the park a little bit, and we're spotted by Rambly the Raccoon, who appears on a monitor, wanting to help us explore the park with him. Rambly is really just excited to finally have a guest at the park again, and helps us get through the security via Critter Cuff. Our character goes through a tunnel towards the Rambly Railroad, and the tunnel collapses behind us and traps us in. But it's just park renovations, as Rambly says, and we go on the ride and notice we're being followed by Molly Macaw. But she looks a little more fleshy than the cartoon aesthetic would suggest. Once we get off the ride, we try to enter Jetstream Junction, which is locked up tight. So Rambly tells us to go to Lloyd's Theater, where there might be a key. We get jumped by Lloyd after getting the key, and he runs away after a strange sound comes from our Critter Cuff on the way out. The path to Jetstream Junction is resumed, and we get in. We end up heading towards the landing pad, which is some weird Play Place-esque maze of tunnels, and we see that Molly is still stalking us. We end up running away into a staff-only bunker while Molly is chasing us. And in her attempts to catch us, let's just say, is stopped permanently. Rambly finally gets serious with us and tells us that the park is in a sorry state of repair due to the neglect. Apparently, Rambly was locked in the front of the park the entire time, and we were the ones who freed him to the rest of it. Rambly seems to have not been aware up until now that the park mascots were, well... Anyway, Rambly then recruits our character to help him fix up the park, and guides us toward Oceanic Odyssey, where the game ends with a little sneak peek from Finny, an adventure for next time. Now I think this story is really great. It's really simple, it's streamlined, it's a means to an end. It gets us through the game without too many questions as to why any of this is happening. And I'm assuming they're going to explain the why as the game goes on, which is totally fine. If they had the entire story from the start, I feel like maybe they could thread it in better. But they said they have the basic premise. I trust them. TLDR, the story works. It's great.
Don't you tell me how many calories I need, bitch!
Now I have the section dubbed the gameplay, which is a very wide term, but you'll see what I mean very soon. So first of all, I just really enjoy that there's just a lot to find. It's really great to just walk around and explore, because you're being rewarded for just having fun, doing what you want to do. And it's completely unnecessary. It just adds more to the game. The park feels alive, even if I don't like some of the assets, but we'll get to that later. I think the entities, for lack of a better term, I guess you could call them monsters, that's what the wiki calls them, but whatever. I think they stalk you to great effect. It's pretty worrying when you see them slithering around corners in the darkness. I do have a criticism for it, but once again, save till later. The cool characters are on full display for just about the entire game, especially Rambly, which, let me tell you, Rambly alone is enough to try out this game. I think all the characters are really fun. They have clearly a lot of history. Mostly because of the "you've known me for 100 years" line from Finley. But let's not worry about that. I think the progression is really easy, and it just flows really well because it's hard to get lost. Because once again, it's fun to explore. Every place has a purpose, basically. So you never feel like you're in the wrong area, because you're always close enough to the correct area to make an easy switch, and that is great.
Leave me alone!
It seems you're my friend.
Now, I was going to have the horror as my next subject, but it's very delicate and special, and I think it needs to be saved for the needs work section, unfortunately. Onto the characters. Crutch of the game. First of the bunch, and my favorite, Rambly the Raccoon. I think he is actually very funny. He's super quirky without being overbearing. It's great. He's animated with a lot of charm that really helps with the quirky aspect of him. And he's really the only person in the park that's trying to help you, which adds to his fun personality. I personally think he's cute as fuck. I'm probably really fruity for saying that, but I don't care. I'll never beat the furry allegations, and it don't matter. The creme de la creme is that Rambly is all of these things, and he feels like a real person. He is aware of the bleak state of the park, and although he's trying to hide it best he can, he eventually breaks down and he talks to you about it. He doesn't keep trying to put up the facade that nothing's wrong. He recognizes the fact that he can't hide what's wrong with the park, that it's not what it used to be, and I love him for it. Lloyd is quite the character. Lloyd has a very powerful voice. He is, I would say, a great actor, even if he is super very arrogant. He loves the stage and everything about performance. And he's hated by Rambly for a so far unknown reason. It may just be because of his demeanor, but that's yet to be seen. Molly Macaw, the main-ish villain of this chapter. I say main-ish because of a certain character that comes next. I really like Molly Macaw. She's super charismatic, she's fun to look at, she has a lot going on with her design. Her being bad at flying just really adds to her funny character, which the others don't really seem to let her forget. She's apparently very sturdy because she's survived several crashes at this point. And be careful, lore coming in! She can mimic sounds she hears, so we get some pretty interesting voice lines that may suggest that the park members were being abused, possibly by the owners. Now then, on to the champion of the furries, Salem the Skunk. She's a very mischievous character with supposed power to corrupt. I think it might be because of that potion she has like wrapped around her torso on that belt. I don't know what that's about. It's really cool. I think she has a good design. She's only seen as a broken cutout in the Rambly Railroad ride, but she is seen later in the arcade game in that pixelated form, so we don't have too much to go off of. We don't even have a voice for her. But she seems to be the main antagonist of the group, for lack of a better term. Once again, talking about that power to corrupt, whatever that means. She turns Molly purple, which is strange because Molly is also the main antagonist of Chapter 1. That's a little strange, isn't it? Okay, let's see what else we got here. Oh. Onto Finley the Serpent, the unsung hero. I really like Finley. I think he has a really cool design. He has a very deep and rich voice, and he has a seashell collection, apparently, that he really enjoys. Apparently, that's his main hobby. It's to be said that he's best friends with Rambly. He's also possibly blind. So, if you look at his model, he doesn't have pupils when he's in his monster form, which is really weird. It might just be a design choice. Maybe it's because they forgot or something. It could be a bug. We don't really know, but it was brought up in one of Unique Geese's streams, and he kind of brushed it aside. Who's to say? The done well. We all love what this game has to offer. So I think the collectibles were really fun. Once again, the puzzles were not brain-meltingly hard. They weren't balls easy. You wouldn't expect anyone to get stuck, but it does take a little bit of time to at least think about it and then figure it out. I think the pacing is done very well. I had absolutely zero moments where I felt like the game was going too fast. I think it was at the perfect pace the entire time. If you watch my other video that I did, which is just my gameplay and live reactions, you'll notice that the first quote-unquote scare that comes in, where it starts building up the tension with the ambiance, the slithering away in the darkness from the first appearance of Molly Macaw, you'll notice I'm like about to start saying, the game needs to start getting scary if it is a horror game. And before I can even finish my sentence, there she is, in the darkness, peering at me, and looking spooky. Now, speaking of the characters, I really like the character design. Once again, I think that all the characters are designed really well. I may not exactly enjoy what happens to them when they become the monsters, but the 2D designs are beautiful. Love them. No complaints. It matches their personalities very well. Except for Salem, because we don't even have a voice for her yet. I really liked the rides that were scattered around. It contributed to the atmosphere super well, and they felt like they were real. And most, if not all of them, already exist in the real world, except with different IPs. If you don't understand what I'm getting at, I'm saying that it adds to the immersion really well. Speaking of the immersion, the setting is very strong and it feels thought out. It's like they went into this game, they had a vision, and they stuck with that vision the entire time. Steel wool! All the park members have a lot of charm, and I feel like they feel genuine. So it's great to interact with them and just be near them. Adding on to that, the park members feel like actual friends and Lloyd. I think the jump scare for Molly was pretty cool. I really liked it how she like rips out your throat. It feels very violent while not exactly showing anything super visceral. I think the kill screen for Molly, it wasn't exactly creative, but I liked how it looked because of the fact that I just love how Juniors deals with its jump scares as well. I think that Molly McCaw's 2D to monster transition in design is done really well. Her feathers look pretty real, and I enjoy that. I like the dilated pupils that she has, and the complete lack of clothing, don't take that out of context, except for the helmet and the scarf. Now then, really important in a game, sound design. I was just about never taken out of the game by the sound, so I have to just point out that I think it was pretty good. Even better than the sound, the music. The music was straight banger after banger. I loved the intro and especially the outro. Mostly because Rambly sings it, but a character is only as good as its writing. Yikes. The horror really does need some work. I'm gonna be completely honest, in my opinion, I don't think the monster designs are scary in the slightest. I think the reason that there are so many times where the monsters are in the shadows stalking you, and they scurry away as soon as you get a little too close to them, is because they want you to think that the monsters are ever present. Unfortunately, I think it gets old. It's said a lot in the horror scene as a whole. The more and more the monster is seen, the less and less scary it gets. Once you do the big reveal is when it really matters, and unfortunately, it's not done super well in this game. I think if we cut down the amount of those scurrying away moments, we could add more moments like when Lloyd tries to grab you. But instead of having a free cam, please have it fixed towards the action. There's nothing stopping you from just missing it entirely, which unfortunately is what I did. I missed half of it. And the second time, I just feel like it wasn't very impactful. So they definitely need to work on their scares. This next criticism, I'm gonna be real, it's kind of half-baked. Because I understand why it has to happen, but the fade to black transitions, they need to go. Yes, I've heard that the game will run very poorly if it wasn't there. I was on the live stream when he was saying these things, because I was trying to ask the questions myself, but we need to improve in that aspect at least a little bit. The sheer amount of times that it fades to black and transports you to a different area is so immersion breaking. It needs to be cut down at the very least. Now, the monsters are a big part of the game. It's the reason why it can be considered a horror game. And let me just say, Finley needs the most work. But that's not to say that Lloyd is much better. The monster designs are just really not at the level that they should be. I think that monster Lloyd is so disappointing, specifically because the concept art looked really promising. Specifically pointing to the mane, which looked really frazzled, almost Super Saiyan-like. The fur was all matted and sticking up. It was great. He looked like a rabid animal. He had that awesome sinister grin, and he didn't look as smooth. Maybe they need to hire someone else to make the models. I don't know if it's specifically the monster design that makes this not work, or the animation. But I think Molly McCaw's like running and walking animation when she's scurrying around in the shadows, I think it looks really bad and more silly than scary. Unique Geese actually said as much in his live stream. Maybe not to the same effect, but he was like, yeah, I saw some people laughing at it rather than, you know, being spooked. And I get that it needs work. So, thank you for noticing. Couldn't help but notice that there was a seemingly inconsistent time period that the park is supposed to be in. This is in relation to the 1990s computer that I see really early in the game. And then throughout the game, there's modern flat screen monitors. And there's one section of the game where there's an old ass 1990s keyboard next to an RGB modern mouse. I don't get it. It's probably just reused assets for saving time. But guys, when it's immersion breaking like that, you gotta pay attention to the details, please. Now, I really tried my best to stay unbiased, but the lacking horror in a horror game was really hard to look past. But ultimately, I don't know what would have made a good jump scare for monsters I just don't find scary. My best advice I can give that Ban never seems to take: hire someone to make your vision closer to what it needs to be. In this case, scarier, more detailed, less animatronic, which is what Unique Geese was going for, which is why they added the blood during the Molly death. More alive. So, those are my thoughts on Indigo Park. I think I may have jumbled up my thoughts a bit while rushing to get this out in time. I need this review to be a bit more refined in post, so I'm sorry if I didn't communicate my thoughts and criticisms properly. I really have high hopes for the future of this game, regardless of the fear factor. Get out of here, Joe Rogan. This game does so much right, and it's hard to criticize Indigo Park when I'm enjoying myself the entire way through. Thank you, Unique Geese and team, for showing your vision to us. We eagerly await your next installment, and I have full confidence that you'll keep up the quality. But with that being said, I give Indigo Park an 8 out of 10. Now then, once again, this game is free, so go try it out. Show the team some well-deserved love. And if you enjoyed the video, share my thoughts, or want to argue with me on why this game is actually the scariest thing known to man, go hit that subscribe button, like the video, and follow me on Twitch. If you want to see more from me live, I do have a streaming schedule in the Discord, which is linked down below, so go check that out. But for now, that is all the time I have for today, so thank you everybody so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Lots of love, and have a day.